I got something interesting for you here today. This looks like an integrally suppressed rifle, but it is absolutely not. This is the HM Defense Mono Flash, and there's so much more going on in this rifle that we just absolutely have to take a look at it. Up to this point, HM Defense has been known for two products, really. The HMB bolt that fixes one of the main weaknesses of the AR, and the monoblock barrel, which eliminates a parts junction where the gas block meets the barrel, by simply integrating it directly into the barrel. Continuing on the thought process of the monoblock barrel is the Mono Flash. This is a 5.5 inch flash can machined directly into the barrel. This brings the 10.75 inch barrel to an overall legal length of 16 inches. The barrel is 1-in-7 twist and is made of 4150. That whole combo is encased in a 12-inch handguard that runs part of the way up the flash can, and it's 3-sided M-lock at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock with 1913 rail on the top. HM is doing these as both complete uppers and rifles. You can see they've got some recognizable equipment on the build out, but there are a few things that may not be immediately apparent. For instance, the QD point here at the back, the trigger, and the oversized trigger guard. They're located here in Ohio, and they are familiar with shooting in the winter. Ooh. Nice. Let's talk about the impetus for this thing here for a second, because you're like, oh my gosh, that thing's big. Why on earth would I want that on the end of the gun? First off, the complete upper I think weighs in just about 4 pounds, so it doesn't really add any weight to the end of the gun. Remember that for this hollow can, you're losing inches of barrel, which is much more dense. So speaking of losing inches of rifled barrel that is actual pressure bearing, the whole situation with the braces. We don't really know what that discussion is going to end up being, because there's a lot of talk with the powers on high and all that sort of stuff. I don't want to get into that argument here, but the whole thing with the AR pistols and the braces, this is a product that kind of thinks ahead of that and says, hey, you know, this is a legit rifle. It's all the dimensions, overall length, and then the barrel length meet requirements. So that's not even a discussion. The other thing about it is that this is going to be the same dimensions as their Stealth, which is their integrally suppressed stack. So you could conceivably, if you wanted an integrally suppressed gun, it was a one stamp gun, you could purchase this as is and then Form 1 it. You can have your cake and eat it too, if you know what I'm saying. A lot of times when you throw devices like this on the end of your rifle, you end up with some problems with the gassing. So this thing comes set up to be able to run a big can like this on the front and not mess up the gassing any. And then the last thing I would discuss with the inspiration for this is this thing's just a lot of fun. It's a cool toy. I mean, it throws a huge fireball. Such to the point where I actually had to back off when I was doing the velocity data because it was just disrupting the chronograph. Speaking of gassing on this thing, if we compare it to an adjustable gas block rifle, we can see that it's immaculately gassed. It's right in the center, right where we want it to be. But that's actually a little bit surprising because a lot of times we have issues placing a gas block this close to the front. So even though we have this can here, there's not really that much under pressure post-gas length. And a lot of times that will result in cycling issues or under gassing issues because there's just not enough dwell time to run the system. Well, what they've been able to do, because this is not removable as part of the barrel, they've been able to really dial that in. And because there's no inefficiency in that there's no leakage between the gas block and barrel, because it's part of the barrel, the only thing you have to worry about is your gas tube fitment. And that technology was figured out a long time ago. So I have to say that I'm actually impressed with how well this thing runs. And we got to test it in a variety of conditions, both snowy, icy, rainy, muddy, as you could expect, everything that you get in the winter here in the state of Ohio. As demonstrated with the chronograph data, when you run a short barrel, you deplete a little bit of velocity. I think everybody's kind of figured that out by this time. But what you get out of a short barrel many times is a more accurate rifle because the barrel's much more rigid. It's the mass is distributed over a shorter length. So for the same profile of barrel, you end up with a more rigid barrel and usually, if the gun's built properly, a more accurate rifle. Boys and girls, it's whipping today. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but we're gonna do our best. So what we got going on here is we're gonna accuracy test this sucker. So I've got our standard Fiocchi 223A in here. This is the blue box stuff that you see on the shelf. And then we've also got some Sierra Match Kings here. These are 77 grain hollow point boat tail. So we're going to try both these types of ammunition in this rifle right here and see what the accuracy looks like on this monstrosity. So here we go, 50 yards. We're going to lead off with the 55 grain 223A. Here we go. Extreme circumstances call for extreme measures. So I'm just getting pushed all over the place. Like my mic stand is just, oh my gosh, freaking terrible. Okay. Moving up to match grade. You know, we're gonna shoot one more because there's one flyer and I want to see if this groups. All right, we're gonna take that one as our fifth. Now, we went out and shot this thing with both 55 grain and 77 grain, and I will say that I was surprised that it liked 77 grain nearly as much as it did. So it did a fantastic job in the accuracy department as well. So out of 1,500 rounds that I shot through this rifle, we had 0 malfunctions, which was actually pretty impressive given all the stuff that we kind of put it through and the conditions that we put it through. I did not clean it or lube it the entire time it was here. There are a few things that I would like to see for improvements, and these are going to be fairly nitpicky. While this rail here is attached with set screws, I would really like to see an anti-rotation tab located at the rear here that binds into the upper receiver. The way I look at it is that if you really get wrenching on this thing, you could technically spin the barrel nut. Now, is that likely? Probably not. And is it really necessary on this particular rifle? No. As in, it's got a big flash can on the front of it. you're not going to really be mounting an aiming laser on the front of this thing, because I went out and tested it and it's completely unusable with night vision, as you would expect it to be. All right, this is going to be stupid, but here it goes. Yeah. If you're going for something to be mounted on the front, you should probably look at their stealth line, but I would say that the stealth line uses the exact same rail. So again, I would like to see just a little bit of an aluminum extrusion come back here, just to give that extra little bit. Now, as far as this gap right here that you can see, it was not like this when it arrived, so it did process a little bit, but I also noticed looking in their stock photos that several of the images in their stock photos have this gap here. I'm not going to really beat them up too much about that. It does have the standard double thickness section here at the front of the upper receiver, so it's not like you're going to be mounting anything at that junction anyway. Now, to be completely clear, I'm going to expressly state this. The stuff that I just mentioned about the rail are nitpicks. Should they throw these rails away? No. Should they stop making rifles with the rails that they currently have? No. But in the future, should they choose to redesign the rail, I'd like to see some of those changes integrated in future iterations. You know, continuous improvement, push the needle forward. You know, that's what we do here. This last one is not a nitpick. This castle nut is not staked. It only takes a few minutes to properly stake a castle nut. That needs to be staked. I don't care what else you do to it. I don't care if you rock set this thing on the end of it. That needs to be physically blocked from rotating. Now, this one did fine. In the 1,500 rounds that we shot through it, no problems whatsoever. But I have seen rifles that are 5,000 to 6,000 rounds in, rock hard, solid, you know, and then take them out to the range and that sucker spins off. Okay? That's just the way it is. Those castle nuts need to be staked. And again, it's a small change, very easy for them to make, and they should make that change. Alright guys and gals, I hope you enjoyed our video on the HM Defense Mono Flash. This is one of those ones that, if you're looking for something that isn't in your super serious, you know, end of the world, you know, post-apocalyptic build, if you're looking for something that's fun, something that should definitely be on your list. Let's put it that way. And it also offers some of that future versatility depending on what kind of goes down with the various things that we talked about. But anyway, thanks to them for making this video possible, as well as our patrons on Patreon, Subscribestar, whose names that you should see on screen right now.